The elevator doors slid shut with a quiet metallic sigh, swallowing them in dim fluorescent stillness. Outside, rain lashed against the glass facade of the high-rise, drawing streaks like tear trails on the city's face. Inside, a man stood upright, late 30s, clean-shaven, his charcoal suit rumpled from the day's errands. A paper crown, crafted from crayon-stained construction paper, sat slightly askew on his head, a forgotten token from his daughter's playtime. Cradled in his arm was a paper bag, leaking a drop of milk from the corner. In the far corner of the elevator, a young woman in her late 20s curled inward, hood pulled high, oversized sunglasses concealing her eyes, though the sterile light revealed a single tear gliding down her cheek. He wouldn't have noticed her, not really, had her muffled sniffle not broken the quiet. He turned slowly, brows creasing. "Miss, are you okay?" he asked gently, uncertain. She did not respond, but she trembled. In that small, unnoticed moment, something cracked open. He didn't know it yet, but her reason for being there had everything to do with him. She wasn't supposed to be seen. Her job was simple. Observe, take notes, decide. That's what her firm demanded. That's what the file said. Daniel Rios, 38, widower, small business owner, father of one, assessed for merger and family values integrity. But the second he asked if she was okay, her walls crumbled. She'd trained herself to watch people from a distance. But how do you stay distant from someone who asks with that voice, that tone, that softness that says he still believes in kindness? Her tears weren't just grief. They were confusion. He wasn't what she expected. And now she couldn't look away. He stepped back slightly, offering space without retreat. It was a kindness she didn't know how to process. What had she come here for again? An investment. A checklist. But in those few seconds, she'd already failed every rule she came in with. She sniffed once and forced a half-smile. "Sorry. Allergies," she muttered, her voice scratchy from holding back tears. He nodded, the disbelief in his eyes gentle, not mocking. He turned his gaze to the elevator panel, tapping a floor button again, though it was already descending. "Row night?" he asked. His voice wasn't probing, just offering space. She exhaled. "It's complicated." The words floated in the stale air between them. She expected silence after that, but he surprised her again. "Yeah, life tends to be." That was all. No follow-up. No questions. Just understanding. And that made it worse somehow. Because people weren't supposed to see her pain, let alone relate to it. The elevator chimed, signaling their floor. He stepped forward, cradling the grocery bag, the door sliding open to a warmly lit hallway lined with soft carpet and framed photographs. But she didn't move. Still curled in her corner, one hand now holding her hoodie drawstring like a lifeline. He paused in the doorway, glancing back. "You coming?" he asked, his tone light but not indifferent. She blinked, startled. Yeah." She rose unsteadily and followed. But not because she had reached her floor. Because something about him felt like an anchor she couldn't explain. And because for the first time in years she didn't want to be alone. Hours later, Daniel stood by his daughter's bed, tucking in her blanket with practiced tenderness. The paper crown now lay on his nightstand, glitter sparkling under the glow of his bedside lamp. His mind kept drifting back to that girl in the elevator, her silence louder than any confession. He didn't know her name, didn't know her reason, but her tears had stayed with him, gnawed at something inside. He picked up the crown and turned it in his hands. It was crooked, childish, imperfect, but full of love. Just like the woman's quiet breakdown. He had the strangest feeling he hadn't seen the last of her. And even stranger, he kind of hoped he hadn't. The next morning, Daniel dropped his daughter off at school. She waved from the gate, her little backpack bouncing with every step. He smiled, waving back, unaware that someone watched from across the street. The woman, now in corporate attire, stood hidden behind dark sunglasses and a sleek ponytail. No hoodie. Muffs. No tears. Her disguise complete once more. She wasn't a ghost anymore. She was Olivia Wen, junior partner from Mira Capital, sent to vet Daniel's business for a high-profile merger. She pulled out her phone, pretending to check messages, but her eyes never left him. He was laughing now, playfully mock-saluting the school guard. She felt the same pang she had in the elevator. He wasn't just some name on a report. He was a father. A good one. The real kind. The kind no spreadsheet could measure. And already she was breaking Rule 2. No emotional entanglement. Inside the cafe next to his store, Daniel greeted familiar faces with a smile. It was routine. He always stopped for coffee before opening up shop. Olivia stepped inside moments later, heels echoing softly on the tile. She scanned the room quickly before approaching the counter. Large Americano. No room, she said. Her voice had a steady corporate rhythm now. Daniel glanced sideways, then did a double take. You're the elevator girl. Olivia hesitated. I guess I am, she replied, trying to smile. You okay? He asked, a bit more relaxed now. She nodded. Better than yesterday. Then with a flicker of nerves she added, You own that bookstore next door, don't you? He raised a brow. Guilty. She wasn't ready to tell him who she really was. But something about his easy warmth made her want to stay longer than she should. The bookstore was quiet. Sunlight streamed in through high windows, catching dust motes in lazy spirals. Olivia entered cautiously, her heels muted against the wooden floor. The air smelled of paper, ink, and cinnamon. Somehow, homey. Daniel looked up from behind the counter. You again, he said with a grin. Research, she replied coolly, running a finger across the edge of a bookshelf. Are you planning to write a thesis on fantasy novels? He teased. She smirked. Just browsing. In truth, she was scanning for customer patterns, shelf placements, sales tags, any data that would prove useful. But her eyes kept drifting to the photos pinned near the register. Him and his daughter at a school fair, covered in face paint, laughing. Her throat tightened. This wasn't going to be simple. Not anymore. Later that afternoon, Olivia sat in her car, fingers hovering above her phone screen. A blank report waited to be filled. She could write about Daniel's outdated inventory system or his low monthly margins. She could mention the lack of digital integration. But every time she started, her thoughts drifted back to his daughter's drawing taped to the register. Best dad ever, scrawled in crayon beneath a lopsided heart. How do you quantify heart? She sighed and typed, Subject shows strong community presence, loyal customer base, emotional investment in both location and clientele. She paused, deleted the word subject, typed Daniel instead. Her thumb hovered, trembling. This wasn't analysis anymore. It was personal. And it terrified her. That night, Daniel sat in his living room, folding laundry while his daughter painted at the coffee table. Music hummed low from the radio. Old jazz, soothing and imperfect. Daddy, she said, holding up a new drawing. It's us, and the lady from the elevator. He blinked. There they were, 3 stick figures, one in a suit, one with glasses, and a little girl holding both their hands. You remembered her, he said softly. She was sad. You made her happy, the girl replied with a smile. He didn't answer, but something stirred deep in his chest. Meanwhile, Olivia stood outside in the rain again. She looked up at his apartment light. She hadn't planned to come, but her feet led her there anyway. And maybe, for once, her heart was ahead of her strategy. The following morning, Daniel opened the bookstore early. The bell chimed softly as the door creaked. He set out the new arrivals humming quietly, when Olivia walked in again. No sunglasses, no blazer, just a long sweater and jeans. She looked real. You're making a habit of this, he said. She smiled. Maybe I like the books. He arched a brow. Or maybe you like the company. Her cheeks colored faintly. She approached the counter, eyes scanning titles absent-mindedly. "Do you always open this early?" she asked. "Single dad hours," he replied. "Kids at art club." There was a pause. Then Olivia asked, "You ever think about expanding?" He chuckled. "With what budget?" She nodded, almost too fast. "Right, just wondering." But the idea stayed in the air, unspoken and fragile. He didn't know she could make that happen with one call. And she didn't know why she hadn't already made it. Later, Olivia wandered through the children's section. The shelves were hand-labeled with colorful cards, each one likely decorated by Daniel's daughter. She crouched to read titles, ones she hadn't seen since her own childhood. A small voice broke the silence. That one's my favorite." Olivia turned to see a little girl in pigtails and a paint-stained t-shirt. Daniel's daughter. "You must be the elevator lady," the child said. Olivia smiled gently. "I guess I am. Daddy said you looked sad, but you look better now." Olivia swallowed. "Yeah, I think I am." The girl handed her a book with a dragon on the cover. "This one has a happy ending," she said. And Olivia believed her. For the first time in a long while. Back at her apartment, Olivia stared at her open laptop. Her report was almost finished. Final recommendation pending. Her finger hovered over the file. She should send it. It was time. But her mind kept drifting back to the girl's voice. The way she said, "Happy ending," with certainty. Olivia closed the laptop. She couldn't press send, not yet. Not while her heart felt like it was being asked to betray something real. She moved to the window, watching the sun sink over the city. Her world had always been dictated by metrics, ROI, growth potential, synergy. But Daniel wasn't numbers. He was flesh and flaws and love. She pressed her forehead to the glass and whispered to herself, "What am I doing?" She didn't have the answer yet. But she knew this: she couldn't lie anymore. Not to them. Not to him. And not to herself. That night, Daniel stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing dishes. His daughter was asleep. Music hummed from the old radio. The bell above the door chimed. Confused, he wiped his hands and peeked into the shop. Ow. Olivia stood in the doorway, hair damp from drizzle, holding a brown bag. "Peace offering," she said, lifting it. "Thai food." Daniel blinked, smiled, and unlocked the door. They sat in the reading corner, eating noodles out of boxes, laughing softly over shared stories. She told him about the city, the pace, the people who only smiled when they needed something. He told her about the bookstore's first customer, his daughter, aged 4, buying a used fairy tale with a crumpled dollar bill. By the time the food was gone, so were most of the walls between them. Not all, but enough. Enough to make them both afraid to end the night. They lingered near the door as Olivia gathered her things. Rain whispered outside, tapping lightly against the windows. "Thanks for dinner," Daniel said. She hesitated. "Daniel, there's something I should tell you." He studied her, sensing the shift. Her mouth opened but no sound came. Then his daughter called faintly from the back, stirring. Olivia stepped back. "Tomorrow," she said, almost a whisper. He nodded, though worry flickered in his eyes. She left without another word, walking into the night with her arms folded. Inside, Daniel locked the door, resting his forehead against the wood. Outside, Olivia paused halfway down the block, breathing in the rain. Her phone buzzed. A message: "Need final report by morning." She didn't open it. For now, she just needed to breathe. And maybe, just maybe, choose the ending herself. Morning arrived cloaked in gray clouds. Olivia sat at her desk, staring at the blinking cursor. She knew the consequences. Mira Capital did not wait, and it certainly did not tolerate emotional delays. Her phone buzzed again. "Need final file. No exceptions." Her breath caught. She closed her eyes. A choice waited on the other side of that keyboard: write the truth and lose everything she'd built, or protect her status and betray something more fragile, Daniel's trust. She began typing. Daniel Rios is the heart of his community. His store is more than commerce. It's a sanctuary. She paused. Her fingers trembled. I recuse myself from this decision. Send. It was done. Her chest tightened. She had broken every rule. But she had finally told the truth. Not the kind that protects, but the kind that costs. And she didn't know what would happen next. Daniel flipped the bookstore's sign to closed that afternoon, still distracted by Olivia's almost confession the night before. Something in her eyes had been on the edge of breaking. He hadn't asked for more, but he felt it coming. As he swept the floor, the bell above the door rang. He looked up and froze. 2 people in suits stood just inside, crisp and unreadable. We're from Mira Capital, the woman said. We're here to evaluate the terms of acquisition. Daniel blinked. Acquisition, he echoed. There's no deal here. They handed him a file. There is. We've been assessing you for weeks. His throat went dry. Wait. Olivia? She's no longer on the case, the man said, turning briskly. But she filed a final note. Daniel felt the air go still. His world tilted, just slightly. The woman he'd started to trust had been lying from the beginning. Outside, Olivia sat in the back of a town car parked 3 blocks away. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, white-knuckled, as she watched the bookstore entrance from a distance. She saw the consultants go in. Saw Daniel's body language change through the windows. His shoulders tensed. His hand gripped the counter. And then, like a punch to the gut, she saw the moment he read her name. Olivia looked away. She couldn't breathe. Her choices had reached him now, and not in the way she'd hoped. She opened the car door abruptly and stepped into the rain. The driver called out, but she didn't stop. She walked fast, the drizzle soaking her sweater. She needed to fix this. But more than that, she needed him to understand that what she felt was real, even if how it started was a lie. Daniel didn't close the shop. He couldn't. He just stood behind the counter, staring at the folder. Pages of charts and profiles, and at the top, Olivia Wen. It hurt more than he expected. The moments they shared now felt like manipulation. The child's drawing. The late-night noodles. The laughter. All rehearsed? Or something else? His daughter came running from the back, waving a new painting. Look! Me and you and her again. He took it slowly. 3 stick figures, same as before. Only this time, the lady had wings. Why wings? He asked. The girl grinned. Because she flew away. But maybe she'll come back. He swallowed hard. He didn't know what to believe. But his daughter had already forgiven her. Maybe he wasn't ready to slam the door either. Not yet. That evening, Olivia returned to the store. No disguise, no file, no pretense. Just her. Rain still dripped from her hair as she stepped inside. Daniel looked up slowly. The silence between them stretched like thread. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Her voice cracked. Because I was afraid you'd stop looking at me the way you did. And because I didn't think I'd care this much. He said nothing. Her eyes shimmered. Well, everything started as business, but it didn't stay that way. I wrote the report. I told them I couldn't finish it, because I fell in love with you. And with this place. Daniel didn't respond right away. Then his daughter appeared, tugging at Olivia's hand. I made you wings, she said. Olivia looked down at the paper wings taped to her sweater. And for the first time in days, Daniel smiled. The next day, Olivia returned before the bookstore opened. She wasn't sure what she expected, distance, awkwardness, or maybe nothing at all. Instead, she found Daniel inside, coffee in hand, flipping the sign to open. He saw her through the glass and held the door. You're early, he said. She offered a tentative smile. Couldn't sleep. He handed her a cup. Then you're in the right place. They stood in quiet for a moment, the world outside slowly waking. Do you still trust me? She asked softly. Daniel looked at her, long and steady. I don't know what this is yet, he said. But I know what it isn't. It's not fake. Her eyes shimmered. That's enough, she whispered. And in that fragile peace they began again, not from the beginning, but from where the truth had finally found room to breathe. Word spread quickly. Locals heard whispers of a buyout, rumors of big corporations and lost charm. Customers trickled in, eyes scanning for signs of change. But nothing changed. Daniel greeted each person with the same warmth. Olivia stocked shelves like she belonged, and the air remained filled with the scent of old pages and fresh coffee. An elderly customer pulled Olivia aside. You the new boss? Olivia smiled. Not exactly, just helping. The woman chuckled. Good, we like things just as they are. Olivia nodded, heart full. The community had already made space for her, even when she didn't think she deserved it. And maybe that's what made it sacred. Not perfection, but welcome. Genuine, messy, human welcome. Later that afternoon, Olivia stood with Daniel in the back room, sorting through dusty boxes of old donations. You really kept all this? She asked, lifting a faded fairy tale. Every book has a memory, he replied. She opened one, revealing a handwritten note. To the bravest girl I know, keep dreaming. Olivia paused. Who wrote this? Daniel smiled. My wife. She was a school librarian, passed away 4 years ago. Olivia held her breath. She sounds amazing. He nodded, emotion tucked beneath his words. She was, and she'd like you. The simplicity of that statement nearly undid her. She returned the book gently to its place, hands lingering. I wish I could have met her. Daniel reached for her hand. Maybe, in some ways you just did. And Olivia knew that she wasn't replacing anyone. She was just being seen. That night, Daniel hosted a story hour. The shop transformed, pillows and beanbags strewn across the floor, soft string lights glowing above. Olivia sat cross-legged beside the children, listening as he read aloud, voice animated and warm. His daughter curled into his side, laughing at the funny voices he gave each character. Olivia's heart swelled. This wasn't just a man. He was a builder of memories, of safety, of home. After the reading, the kids clapped, and Daniel smiled. Olivia rose, clapping too, her eyes locked on his. He looked at her like she'd always been meant to be there. And for the first time in her life, she believed she belonged. Not as a consultant, not as a role, but as Olivia. Just Olivia. After everyone left, the store went quiet. Olivia stayed behind, helping Daniel clean up. As she folded a blanket, she turned to him. I'm not leaving, she said. Not tomorrow. Not for the next offer. Not for another title. Daniel looked up. Are you sure? She stepped closer. Yes, for the first time I am. He moved toward her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I never asked you to stay, you didn't have to, she whispered. Their foreheads touched. Then, slowly, their lips did too. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was a promise, the kind that doesn't need words to be heard. Outside the rain had stopped. And inside, two people who never planned to meet stood surrounded by stories, writing a new one of their own. A week passed, and with it, the quiet shift from chance to certainty. Daniel and Olivia moved in rhythm, shelving books side by side, sharing morning coffee, walking his daughter to school hand in hand. The community adjusted as if she had always belonged. At night they'd sit on the back porch, legs tangled under a shared blanket, watching the city lights flicker through the trees. One evening, Olivia said softly, I never thought I could have this, not after everything I chose to be. Daniel looked at her, steady and warm. You didn't choose wrong, you just hadn't met the right story yet. She smiled, lips trembling. And you think this one's worth reading? He kissed her temple. I think we're still on the first chapter. Their silence wasn't empty. It was full, peaceful, grounded. They were no longer two people orbiting around secrets. They were learning how to stay. But peace has a way of being tested. Olivia received a call from Mira Capital's senior board. Her report, though redacted, had drawn attention. They wanted her back. A lead role. High salary. Big title. "You built this," her former mentor said. "Don't throw it away for a bookstore and a man." Olivia stared at her reflection in the elevator mirror of the office she hadn't stepped into in weeks. That old life shimmered like a mirage. She remembered the woman who had wept in that same elevator, the woman who hadn't known her heart could belong anywhere. She stepped off on the wrong floor on purpose. Walked out onto the street. Called Daniel. "They want me back," she said. Silence. "Do you want to go?" he asked. Her answer came without hesitation. "No. I just needed to know I could say no." Later that evening, Daniel found Olivia sorting books in the back room. He walked in, holding a small envelope. "This came for you," he said. She opened it slowly. A handwritten note from one of Mira's junior analysts. "Thank you for showing us that not every decision needs to be driven by gain. Some just need to be human." Olivia's fingers brushed the ink. She sat down, overwhelmed. "I used to think strength was proving you could walk away from anything," she whispered. "But maybe it's staying, even when it's hard." Daniel knelt beside her. "Especially when it's hard," he corrected gently. Their fingers intertwined on the floor, surrounded by towers of books and old memories. In that moment, Olivia understood. She wasn't stepping down. She was stepping into something far more powerful. Weeks later, the bookstore hosted its first community author night. Flyers had been pinned up for days. Locals packed the aisles, coffee cups in hand, their murmurs soft as the author took the mic. Olivia stood in the back, watching Daniel orchestrate the evening with the calm ease of a man who had built something worth sharing. A teenager approached her shyly. "Are you the lady from the elevator?" Olivia blinked, then laughed softly. "I guess I am. He talks about you," the teen said. "Said you changed everything." Olivia's heart fluttered. She hadn't changed the bookstore. She hadn't saved anything. But maybe she helped him see it could be more. That night, she realized this wasn't just Daniel's story. It was hers too. Written in glances, in choices, in moments like this, quiet but unforgettable. As the crowd cleared and chairs were stacked, Daniel found Olivia sitting on the shop counter, legs dangling, face lit by the amber glow of closing time. "So," he said, hands in pockets. "Still thinking about boardrooms?" She grinned. "Only when I need a reminder of what I don't miss." He leaned in closer. "I used to think I had to carry everything myself. But you," he paused, searching for the words, "you made it easier to breathe." Olivia's eyes glistened. "You made me believe I could stay in one place and still be strong." He stepped between her knees, palms resting gently on her hips. "You're not just strong," he murmured. "You're home." They kissed again, deep, certain, honest. No masks. No secrets. Just two people, finally whole, rewriting the ending they never thought they'd deserve. It was spring now. The bookstore windows were open, letting in the scent of fresh rain and blooming jasmine from the park across the street. Daniel stood at the register while Olivia knelt beside a group of kids on the rug, reading from the same dragon book his daughter had once given her. The child who once painted paper wings now drew dragons and castles on poster board nearby. Olivia's voice was soft but animated, her eyes glowing with life. "And the dragon," she read, "wasn't scary. He was just misunderstood." They'd laughed. Daniel watched from a distance, heart full. She had become part of the place, not as an outsider, but as something essential. Not just a chapter in his life, but a co-author. And somehow she'd rewritten everything with her presence. Later that afternoon, Olivia sat with Daniel beneath the cherry blossom tree in the park nearby. Petals drifted down like confetti, some clinging to her sweater. "Do you remember the elevator?" she asked. He chuckled. "Kind of hard to forget." She leaned her head against his shoulder. I walked in thinking I was the one with power, the one evaluating, but I was the one being seen for the first time. Daniel exhaled, wrapping his arm around her. You didn't just see this place, you chose it. That's bigger than any report. She nodded, eyes closed. I spent years writing about investments, but no one ever told me what it feels like to be one. He kissed the top of her head. You're not an investment, you're the story. The wind blew gently, scattering petals and history. And neither of them spoke after that. They didn't need to. Weeks later, Olivia received one final call from Mira Capital. They were dissolving the acquisition plan. Too much community pushback. Too much complexity. But the partner added one thing. Your note changed something here. You were right. Olivia hung up and turned to Daniel, who was placing new orders for the summer reading program. They're pulling out, she said. He looked up, concerned. Are you okay with that? She smiled. More than okay. He studied her face, clear, calm, rooted. So now what? She walked behind the counter, reached into the drawer, and pulled out a ring of keys. No, she said, dangling them. Now we remodel, together. He laughed, full and surprised. She'd chosen not just him, but this future. And it was just beginning. Construction dust floated in sunbeams as shelves were moved, walls repainted, and community volunteers arrived with pastries and paintbrushes. Olivia wore overalls and a bandana, laughing as Daniel smudged white paint on her nose. The child's corner got new cushions, the reading nook expanded, and a mural started forming on the back wall. Dragons, stars, and a paper crown. On a break, Olivia stood in front of the mural sketch and whispered, "This was never supposed to be mine." Daniel came beside her. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's ours. They stood, hands covered in paint, hearts wide open. She had traded glass towers for creaky floorboards. And it was the best trade she'd ever made. Months later, the grand reopening day arrived. Daniel stood beside Olivia on the small stage in front of the shop. His daughter held the ceremonial ribbon, proudly wearing the paper crown once lost and found again. Locals gathered, cameras flashing, smiles warm. Olivia stepped forward to speak. I came here thinking I was here to decide the future of this place. But instead, this place decided mine. She glanced at Daniel. Some stories start with conflict. Others begin in silence. Ours began in an elevator. With a question, not a promise. The ribbon was cut. The crowd cheered. And as they stepped through the doors together, the little girl shouted, "The dragon got his happy ending." Olivia knelt and kissed her forehead. So did we. And though no one knew what tomorrow would bring, one thing was certain. This story had found its heart.